In this video, I'm going to show you 8 types of people we shouldn't help. The last one will surprise you. But before we start, I want you to pay close attention to this story because it's crucial for understanding the main lesson of this video. Once upon a time, there was a farmer named Peter who lived in a small village. Peter was known for being a kind person and was always willing to help others. One day he found a snake trapped in a snare on his field. Even though he knew it was dangerous, Peter felt sorry for the snake and decided to free it. He took care of the snake, giving it food and a safe place to recover. However, as soon as the snake felt better, it bit Peter and escaped. Hurt and surprised, Peter realized that the snake's nature was to bite, no matter how much it was helped. This story teaches us that some people, like the snake, don't change their ways. Sometimes, in our eagerness to help, we ignore the signs and end up getting hurt. It's essential to know whom we help and understand that not everyone will value or appreciate our efforts. Think of your energy as a battery. Some people recharge that battery, while others drain your energy faster than a phone with multiple apps open. Sound familiar? Well, let's expose these energy drainers and understand why it's so important to identify them. Before we get into the first type of person, I recommend that you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to stay updated with new content. Let's get started. Number 1, the ungrateful. Have you ever met someone who seems to have a black hole where their heart should be? These are the people who, no matter what you do, always want more and are never satisfied. Imagine you're at a restaurant enjoying a nice dinner with friends. Suddenly you hear someone loudly complaining about the food, the service, and even the color of the napkins. Yes, you guessed it. That's the professional ungrateful person in action. But why do some people always seem unsatisfied? Psychology offers some interesting answers. According to a study conducted by the University of California, people with low self-esteem tend to be less grateful. It's as if they have a filter that only lets negative things through, blocking out all the good life has to offer. Now, we're not saying you should distance yourself from everyone who forgets to say thank you, but it's important to notice when someone is constantly taking advantage of your kindness. As the famous entrepreneur Richard Branson once said, "Treat your employees the way you want them to treat your best customers." We could extend this advice to all our relationships. Think of gratitude as a plant. It needs to be watered and cared for to grow. If you're always giving water, time, energy, and resources to a plant that never blooms, maybe it's time to ask yourself if you're planting in the right garden. But be careful not to confuse ingratitude with constructive honesty. Your friend who tells you that you have spinach in your teeth before an important meeting isn't ungrateful. They're a hero without a cape. The difference lies in the intention and behavior. An interesting study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology revealed that grateful people are not only happier, but also have stronger and longer-lasting relationships. It's as if gratitude is the invisible glue that holds our social connections together. Now, what to do with these people? The answer isn't simple, but we can learn some lessons from positive psychology. Martin Seligman, considered the father of this area of psychology, suggests that cultivating gratitude not only benefits the receiver, but also the giver. So instead of getting frustrated with the ungrateful, we could see them as an opportunity to strengthen our own ability to appreciate what's good in life. It's like working out, but for our gratitude muscle. That said, don't confuse being grateful with being a bottomless pit. Setting healthy boundaries is just as important as being generous. As the writer Brené Brown once said, "Generosity isn't infinite, and it's not true generosity if it comes from resentment." Remember, their lack of gratitude says more about them than it does about you. As the psychologist Carl Rogers once said, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." So, the next time you encounter an ungrateful person, take a deep breath, remember your own worth, and ask yourself, does this person deserve my energy? If the answer is no, it's okay to take a step back. You're not being selfish, you're practicing self-care. And if you decide to keep helping, do it because you genuinely want to, not for recognition. As the philosopher Immanuel Kant once said, act in such a way that you treat humanity, whether in your own person or in the person of any other, always at the same time as an end. never simply as a means. Number 2, the lazy ones. Let's move on to the second type of person we shouldn't help, the lazy ones. Have you ever met someone who seems allergic to effort? These are the people who always have an excuse for doing nothing, as if the couch were their home and the remote control an extension of their hand. Welcome to the curious world of lazy people, those masters of doing nothing who teach us valuable lessons about productivity, or the lack thereof. Imagine you're at a work meeting and hear someone say, "I couldn't finish the report because my cat ate my motivation." Yes, you got it. That's the professional lazy person in action. But why do some people seem to have a PhD in procrastination? Science has some interesting answers. According to a study from the University of Calgary, laziness might actually be an evolutionary strategy to conserve energy. It's as if our cave-dwelling ancestors passed down the battery-saving mode gene. But in today's world, where we don't need to save energy to escape predators, this strategy can become a problem. Psychologist William James once said, "Nothing is as exhausting as the eternal pending of an unfinished task." And he was right. Procrastination not only affects our productivity, but also our mental health. A study published in the Journal of Psychological Science found that people who regularly procrastinate have higher stress levels and worse overall health. But all is not lost for our lazy friends. As the famous physicist Albert Einstein once said, "Laziness is the mother of all inventions." And even though he probably said this while looking for an excuse not to comb his hair, he's right. Sometimes the desire to avoid work can lead to creative and innovative solutions. So how do you identify a chronic lazy person? Here are some warning signs. 1. The king of excuses. These people have more excuses than a cat has lives. "I couldn't exercise because my plant needed me to sing to it to grow" is just the beginning. 2. The "I'll do it tomorrow" expert. For them, tomorrow is a magical place where all the pending work piles up. Spoiler, that tomorrow never comes. 3. The leisure multitasker. They can watch Netflix, scroll Instagram, and complain about work all at the same time. If they put this energy into being productive, they'd probably have solved global warming by now. 4. The shortcut seeker. They are always looking for the easiest way to do things. If there were an app to breathe for you, they'd be the first to download it. 5. The just 5 more minutes person. For them, the alarm clock is just a friendly suggestion. Just 5 more minutes, they say, and before they know it, an hour has passed. Now, we're not saying you should distance yourself from everyone who prefers a nap over a workout session. But remember, surrounding yourself with lazy people means you might become the only active finger in a handful of slackers. As entrepreneur and motivational author Jim Rohn said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." So, choose your company wisely, as you might end up being the only one rowing in a boat full of anchors. Number 3. The irresponsible ones. Now, let's talk about the third type of person, the irresponsible ones. Have you ever met someone who seems to live in a world where nothing has consequences? Welcome to the universe of the irresponsible, experts at dodging commitments and blaming everything and everyone, except themselves. Imagine you're on a boat and suddenly notice a hole in the hull with water starting to come in. While you and the rest of the crew struggle to patch the hole and bail out the water, you see someone sitting calmly on deck, sunbathing and saying, "Not my problem, I didn't make the hole." That's the irresponsible person in their natural habitat. When we try to help someone with this behavior, we often end up in a frustrating cycle. No matter how much we try to support them, our help rarely leads to significant progress. The irresponsible one dodges responsibilities and has an almost Olympic skill in blaming others for their own failures. If something goes wrong, even if it has nothing to do with our help, we might end up being blamed. This isn't just unfair, but can also have an emotional cost and affect our reputation. Therefore, it's important to be careful when dealing with such people. How to handle it? A good strategy is to encourage them to reflect on their actions and the consequences they have. Instead of solving their problems for them, we can guide them to develop self-assessment and self-management skills. Neuroscientist Richard Davidson showed that the brain is incredibly adaptable, capable of changing and adjusting even in adulthood. So there's hope, though they might need a push, or maybe a big push. As Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. In this context, education includes not only academic knowledge, but also the ability to take responsibility and learn from mistakes. Ultimately, dealing with irresponsible people is an exercise in patience and self-control. As philosopher Bertrand Russell said, most of the world's troubles come from the fact that the ignorant are absolutely sure and the intelligent are full of doubts. So, the next time you find yourself dealing with a chronic irresponsible person, take a deep breath and remember, at least you have the intelligence to question whether or not to keep helping. In summary, while helping others is noble, there is a limit. And that limit usually starts when the other person uses your kindness as an excuse for their laziness. So, instead of getting frustrated, see it as an opportunity to practice the art of saying no gently but firmly. After all, sometimes the best way to help someone is by not helping them. Number 4. The manipulators. This group presents a unique challenge as they are true masters at exploiting the goodwill of others. They take advantage of sincere efforts to help for their own interests, with no intention of reciprocating or actually improving. Imagine you're playing a game of chess, but your opponent has the mysterious ability to move your pieces without you noticing. That's how it feels to fall into the hands of an experienced manipulator. But don't worry, today we'll learn how to recognize their tricks and protect ourselves from their moves. So why do some people seem to be experts in manipulation? Psychology offers some interesting answers. According to a study from Stanford University, people with narcissistic and Machiavellian traits are more likely to manipulate others. It's as if they have an internal GPS that seeks the shortest path to their own interests, no matter who they have to harm in the process. Now, we're not saying you should become paranoid and distrust everyone, but it's important to develop a radar for spotting these emotional pirates. As psychologist Robert Cialdini said, the best defense against manipulation is knowledge. Think of your emotional well-being as a fortress. Manipulators are like invaders trying to infiltrate your defenses. Without a good security system, they'll be sitting in your living room, eating your snacks and controlling the remote to your life before you know it. So how do we identify a professional manipulator? Here are some warning signs. The emotional chameleon. They change their personality faster than a teenager changes moods. With each person, they act differently, adapting to what they believe the other wants to see. The gaslighting expert. They make you doubt your own perception of reality. Are you sure that's how it happened? I think your memory is playing tricks on you. The self-esteem sniper. They make seemingly innocent comments that undermine your confidence. Oh, you're going to wear that? Well, if you feel good about it. Number 5. The chronic critics. These people have an uncanny ability to find faults in any situation or person. From your choice of clothes to how you organize your day, they always have something to criticize. Identifying them can be as simple as listening to their conversations. Their comments are usually negative and destructive, rather than constructive. If this sounds familiar, you might be dealing with a chronic critic. Dealing with them can feel like walking through an emotional minefield. No matter how well-intentioned your efforts are, they will always find a way to dismantle them with their sharp criticisms. But why are they like this? Studies suggest that chronic critics often use criticism as a way to establish power or control over others, or even as a way to project their own insecurities. It's as if they wear glasses that only let them see flaws in everything. To neutralize their negative impact, it's essential to maintain a balanced perspective. Don't take their criticisms personally, as they usually say more about them than about you. Try to steer the conversation towards positive aspects or constructive solutions. Sometimes, simply changing the subject can be the best defense against their poisonous comments. Remember, constructive criticism can be useful for personal growth, but chronic criticism only erodes self-esteem and undermines confidence. By setting clear boundaries and maintaining a positive attitude, you can protect yourself from their negative influence and create a more positive and constructive environment around you. Number 6. The narcissists. Have you ever come across someone who seems to have a mirror instead of a soul. Welcome to the intriguing world of narcissists, those people who have elevated self-love to an almost Olympic level. Imagine trying to fill the Grand Canyon with a cup of water. That's how it feels trying to satisfy a narcissist's ego. But don't worry, you're not alone on this journey. According to a study from Indiana University, about 6% of the population exhibits significant narcissistic traits. This means you probably know one or two in your daily life. But how do you identify these self-admirers? If you've ever met someone who believes the sun rises just to illuminate their face, you're probably dealing with a narcissist. These people have an impressive ability to turn any conversation into a monologue about their own achievements, no matter how small. Dealing with a narcissist can be more exhausting than trying to teach a cat to bark. But don't be discouraged. There are strategies you can use. Dr. Craig Malkin, author of Rethinking Narcissism, suggests setting clear boundaries. It's not about changing the narcissist, Malkin says, but about changing how you interact with them. One effective tactic is what psychologists call selective validation. Basically, it's like training a dog. You reinforce positive behavior and ignore the negative. When the narcissist shows a sign of empathy, yes, sometimes that happens, acknowledge it. But when they start their usual self-praise session, don't join in. Remember, you are not obliged to be the captive audience of their one-person show. As actress Bette Midler said, ego is a voracious octopus that feeds off your life. Don't let the narcissist in your life be that octopus. But beware, don't confuse self-confidence with narcissism. The difference lies in the ability to empathize and the constant need for admiration. While a confident person can genuinely rejoice in others' successes, a narcissist sees those successes as a threat to their own greatness. In short, dealing with a narcissist can be a challenge but also an opportunity to strengthen your patience and compassion. And who knows, maybe they'll even learn something. After all, as Oscar Wilde said, to know oneself, observe the behavior of others. Number 7. The exploiters. Imagine encountering someone who always seems to be lurking, looking for any chance to get something at others' expense, without worrying about the consequences. That's the exploiter, someone who excels at taking advantage of others' generosity or resources, without offering anything in return, except their own presence. They might seem friendly and pleasant, but behind this facade lies an opportunistic attitude that can undermine trust in any relationship. Now, don't confuse an exploiter with someone who genuinely needs help. The difference lies in their behavior and reciprocity. As psychologist Harriet Breaker said, exploiters are experts at making you feel guilty when you don't meet their expectations. Spotting an exploiter can be tricky, as they often hide their true intentions behind a collaborative appearance. A clear sign is the lack of reciprocity. They always receive help, but rarely return favors or contribute fairly. They use subtle manipulation, such as compliments or vague promises, to get what they want without truly committing to contribute. Dealing with an exploiter involves setting clear boundaries and being aware of your own resources and personal limits. It's essential to define expectations from the start about what you're willing to offer and what you expect in return. Encouraging reciprocity is also important. Prompt the exploiter to contribute fairly in relationships, whether by sharing responsibilities or setting clear roles and expectations. From a psychological perspective, exploiters reflect a mix of low empathy and high opportunism. Human behavior studies suggest that certain personalities are more likely to adopt manipulative behaviors to satisfy their own interests without considering the impact on others. By understanding how to identify and handle exploiters, you can protect your emotional integrity and maintain healthier, more balanced relationships. It's true that giving and receiving are fundamental in any healthy relationship, but when you notice you're always giving and never receiving, it's time to reconsider the situation. Investing time and effort in people who don't value or appreciate your contribution can be draining and emotionally exhausting. Sometimes it's better to direct that energy towards more balanced and rewarding relationships, where your actions are mutually recognized and valued. Number 8. The envious. Now let's move on to the 8th and final type of person you shouldn't help, the envious. Imagine you've just won the lottery. Who would you tell first? Before you start making a mental list, let me share an interesting fact. According to a study from Harvard University, 70% of lottery winners experience a deterioration in their personal relationships after their win. The main reason? Envy. But you don't need to win millions to feel the corrosive effects of envy. From that promotion at work to a new relationship that has you on cloud nine, the envious are lurking, ready to shoot their poisonous darts of disapproval and resentment. So what makes some people more prone to envy? Psychologist Sarah Pratasi, in her book The Philosophy of Envy, suggests that envy arises when we perceive a gap between what we have and what we believe we deserve. It's as if we have an internal cosmic justice meter that goes haywire when someone gets something we think should be ours. But here's the interesting part. Envy isn't necessarily bad. In fact, it can be a powerful motivator. As the famous inventor Thomas Edison once said, "To invent, you need a good imagination and a lot of trash." Substitute trash with envy, and you have a recipe for success or disaster depending on how you handle it. The key is how we respond to envy, both our own and others. And here's one of the most counterintuitive and effective pieces of advice. Keep your successes and plans secret. Yes, you heard that right. In an age where it seems like if you don't share on social media, it didn't happen, I'm suggesting you do the exact opposite. Why? Well, let me share a secret, with intentional irony. When you share your plans ahead of time, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical that's released when you actually achieve the goal. This can create a false sense of accomplishment, reducing your motivation to continue. It's not just me saying this, it's science. A study published in Psychological Science found that people who kept their goals secret were 70% more likely to achieve them than those who shared them widely. It's almost as if the universe has an ironic sense of humor. The more you talk about your dreams, the less likely they are to come true. When you share your plans, you're not just dealing with your own mind, but also with others. And this is where our envious friends come into play. As writer Gore Vidal once said, "Every time a friend succeeds, I die a little." Now multiply that by every person you tell your plans to, and you get an idea of how much negative energy you might be attracting without realizing it. So what do? Do we become reclusive and keep all our successes to ourselves? Not exactly. The secret is to be selective. As entrepreneur Richard Branson said, "Trust your instincts. Be selective about who you share your dreams with." Think of your dreams and plans as a secret recipe. You wouldn't share it with just anyone, right? Only with those you truly trust, who won't just keep it secret but will also help you improve it. And here's the trick. When you do decide to share your plans or achievements, do so in a way that inspires rather than provokes envy. Instead of saying, "I just got an amazing promotion," try saying, "I'm excited about this new challenge at work." The difference might seem subtle, but the impact on how others perceive your news can be huge. Now back to our envious friends. How do you identify them? Here are some warning signs. The toothless complimenter. Their congratulations sound more forced than a bon appetit at a vegan dinner. The professional minimizer. No matter how big your success is to them, it will always be luck or something insignificant. The compulsive competitor. Your success is just an excuse for them to tell you how they did it better, faster, or cheaper. The covert saboteur. They cheer you on in public but in private do everything they can to derail your plans. The information collector. They always want to know more details, not out of genuine interest, but to find flaws or copy you. Recognizing these patterns is the first step to protecting yourself. The second is to develop what I call an oyster mentality. You know how oysters produce pearls? They take something that bothers them and turn it into something beautiful. Similarly, you can take others' envy and use it as motivation to keep growing and improving. Remember, your worth doesn't diminish with others' successes, nor does it increase with their failures. As writer Mark Twain once said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." Focus on your own path, your own goals, and your own growth. Remember, envy often reflects others' insecurity. As Eleanor Roosevelt said, No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. So, the next time you feel someone's envious gaze, smile. Not because you enjoy their discomfort, but because you've found a signal that you're on the right track. In summary, being selective about who you share your successes and plans with isn't about being selfish or arrogant. It's about protecting your energy, maintaining your motivation, and yes, also shielding yourself from toxic envy. As philosopher Bertrand Russell once said, "Don't worry about what others think. They worry much less than you imagine." So, the next time you have big news or an exciting plan, take a deep breath, smile to yourself, and keep it as a treasure. Share it only with those you know will genuinely be happy for you. And remember, the best success is the one that doesn't need to be announced. Let your actions speak for themselves. After all, actions always speak louder than words and definitely attract less envy. If you made it this far, be sure to leave your mark in the comments by writing "calm mind." Don't forget to like, subscribe, and activate notifications for more content like this in the future. Share this video with anyone who might find it useful. I'll leave the link in the pinned comment for you to check out. Thank you for your continued support. A big hug and see you next time.